Hi, this is Carl Weinstein for the Daily Music Break. I'm thrilled to be speaking to Piedmont Blues today, which is Valerie and Ben Turner. And in this conversation, first of all, thank you both very much for taking time out.
You're welcome.
In this conversation, we're going to talk a little bit about different genres of music, acoustic music. The big picture, though, is if you want to hear some really enjoyable, peaceful acoustic music, check out Piedmont Blues. And a lot of people who are like me, raised on rock and roll, are going to recognize at least some of the tunes that they play because they became the bedrock of rock and roll, at least in my mind. I could be wrong about that, but I recognize a lot of the tunes. So welcome, Valerie and Ben. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. The first question I have is really very much an overview. Could you describe what the Piedmont style is? What is Piedmont music?
Well, those are two different questions.
Okay.
And depending on who you speak to, you'll get 20 different answers. But the Piedmont music, some people think, is music that comes out of the Piedmont region, which runs along the east coast of the United States from Virginia down through Georgia. But the Piedmont style, which is a technique of finger picking, doesn't necessarily have to be played, of course, by people or artists from that region.
Okay.
And it's a style of finger picking where the thumb plays what's called an alternating bass. It goes back and forth between two bass strings, while the remaining fingers pick out a syncopated melody. And that's an important key word there. It's a syncopated melody.
If I could interrupt, sorry to interrupt. I try not to be rude, but sometimes I just jump in. What do you mean by syncopated, Valerie?
Well, it doesn't sound like a marching band. It's not on, it's music that's played where the rhythms are syncopated. They're in between the beats.
Okay.
It could be ahead of the beat or behind the beat, but it's not on the beat all the time, like as a rule. It doesn't sound like this.
Okay.
And the only thing I would change, and that's just my personal definition, and the only thing I would change is to say that there are exceptions to that. The biggest exception being someone like Elizabeth Cotten, who played in that style with an alternating bass, but she didn't play that bass with her thumb because she had her guitar flipped around. It was upside down. So she was actually playing her bass strings with her fingers and playing a lot of that melody with the thumb.
I was going to bring up Elizabeth Cotten, who of course was of Freight Train fame and a lot more. In looking at when I did a post and listened to a lot of Elizabeth Cotten, and in the description of her, she was called a ragtime guitarist, or maybe that's just inaccurate, or maybe I got it wrong. I always, of course, thought of ragtime piano. I didn't even know there was a ragtime guitar, but there is. I guess was I correct in that some people called her that, or is it just in my mind? And more importantly, probably, is there overlap between different genres of acoustic guitar playing from way back in the day?
Well, I'd like to answer that by saying that ragtime music is a genre of music,
Right.
which preceded blues music, acoustic blues music.
Okay.
So ragtime is a genre, but the Piedmont style of fingerpicking is a technique. And so that technique could be applied to many different genres of music. I could use that Piedmont style of finger picking and play folk music. I could use it for rock and roll. I could use it for, and it certainly is very linked to ragtime playing. Ragtime is certainly very syncopated, and it often does feature an alternating bass, not always, but we'll hear that. So there's a lot of overlap in that regard.
So what I hear you saying is that it's not apple. It's to some extent apples and oranges. That Piedmont is a technique and ragtime is a genre, and because of Scott Joplin, it became more associated with piano. But there are ragtime guitar players. Is that
Absolutely?
okay?
Absolutely.
You know, it's funny that you say that, because when I was looking at the list of Piedmont style guitarists, it seemed very, very broad. I mean, I don't hear a lot of similarity between Reverend Gary Davis and Mississippi John Hurt. I mean, other than they're both great, but it seems like a lot different. It seems like it's a very broad category. So as you were saying, I guess that a lot of people can use it for a lot of different things, a lot of different genres. Who are some of the other people? I just mentioned Gary Davis, who's mentioned as a Piedmont style. Who are some of the other big names? There's a lot of really fun unknown names when you look on the list. I think two
Baker.
one of my favorites.
Well, we did mention, Ben just mentioned
Etta Baker.
Etta Baker
Baker,
is another
yes.
excellent example. We already mentioned Elizabeth Cotton and Mississippi John Hurt.
Right.
You have people like John Jackson. He was out of the Virginia area. And similar to John Jackson, you've got John Cephas, who was our good friend and my mentor. He was from Washington, D.C. You have people like Fred McDowell and Fulton Allen. There's just, the list just goes on and on. I'm going to say that Memphis Minnie, or Lizzie Douglas was her actual name. She played often in that style. The list is very, very endless.
Is Bucko White in that category? Is he?
He could be, yeah. I would say yes, but of course there are always going to be people that disagree.
And it makes a lot more sense to me now, just because your description of it more as a tool, for lack of a better word, as opposed to a specific genre. So that makes a lot more sense. Before we started recording, I was telling you that I'm a huge fan of Mississippi John Hurt. To me, what resonates is that it's just this peaceful, precise, and his personality seems peaceful and calm, and just a relaxing kind of music to listen to. That's what resonates with me. Why are you guys, fans of Mississippi John Hurt?
Oh, his music is just so engaging and mesmerizing. It is peaceful, for sure. I just fell in love with his style of playing and his style of singing from the first time that I heard him. How about you, Ben?
Yeah, and most people describe him as being peaceful. People who have met him and actually had a moment to speak to him. So I guess his playing, his personality, that all came through.
That all came through.
It's funny with the great ones, the personality is a huge part of it. I had the opportunity to do an interview earlier this week about Doc Watson, and it's the same thing. It's the personality. It's very hard, I guess, to be a great at anything without your personality being a big part of it. And there's a recording of Mississippi John Hurt actually singing for a coffee company. It's like a coffee commercial.
Coffee.
Which is great. I wanted to have,
from Maxwell House.
Yeah.
well, I wanted to run out to Dunkin' Donuts after I don't think it was an ad for Dunkin' Donuts. Is there a big, now I know there's a link between, and you mentioned rock and roll. I know anyone who was raised on rock and roll is familiar with Mississippi John Hurt, with Fred McDowell, and with Gary Davis. I mean, a lot of the blues music and the rock music of the 60s, Yorba Calcone and people like that, really built on that structure and changed it and plugged in amplifiers and whatnot. Do you see that line from the people we're talking about to rock and roll and beyond? Is that a strong theme to you guys who deal with it all the time and play this music, for a living?
Oh, 100%, yes. Because blues music was the precursor to jazz and rock and roll,
Right.
and many music forms that have come beyond that. It has really informed much of what we hear in the United States, and indeed now worldwide. So there is a definite line. During the folk boom of the 60s, many of the original acoustic blues masters were rediscovered and introduced to a brand new audience through festivals and extensive touring that was global. And so the music that they created was able to influence a lot of what happened afterwards.
Yeah, and it seems like more people in Europe and around the world are more familiar with this music, even more so than some people in the United States.
That's what we find when we perform at various gigs. Europeans are definitely very well informed. Not to say that people in the US aren't, but they are, to me, less informed often, our audiences, than the ones in Europe.
I think maybe we take it for granted here or something like that, but it's probably always been the case. And last Piedmont question, and I want to talk about Piedmont Bluz. Is there a vibrant Piedmont community of performers? To this kind of a segue into talking about the band. Is there a vibrant Piedmont style community of musicians today?
Absolutely. I would say that there's a vibrant acoustic blues community, and within that community you have many people that play within the Piedmont style and other styles. It's not the be all and end all.
Right.
There are people playing in lots of different styles, and it
Right.
is vibrant. And I'm really happy that there are so many younger people picking up the baton and really diving in headfirst and carrying these early traditions on.
Yeah, people like John Tavius Willis, there's Samuel James, Sean McDonald, and Hubby Jenkins.
There's just so many. And
That's great.
It's so refreshing to see.
And I wanted to ask you directly about about Piedmont Bluz, but I see on your website that you guys do classes, and so you're no doubt contributing to the fact that it's living on.
Yes, we both do workshops.
One of the things that we contributed was we wanted to. Back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, a lot of people documented these early masters either in books or in film or recordings. And these artifacts have helped future generations, and we wanted to contribute to that effort. We ourselves published a book. Here it is. It's called Piedmont Style Country Blues Guitar Basics.
That's beautiful. It's a beautiful cover. Who is that on the cover?
That's Valerie.
That's me.
Oh, that's you.
That's me.
Oh, okay. It's this Zoom thing's not working for me.
No, I have many different looks.
Your hair was down. That's my excuse.
It was.
And it was shorter
And
at
it was
that
much
time.
shorter here.
Yeah.
But and Ben designed the book. It's a beautiful book. It's been acquired by the Library of Congress.
Oh, beautiful. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Is it on Amazon? Is it on Amazon?
No, you have to get it from us.
Oh, okay. So tell me about Piedmont Bluz. My understanding is that you both had non-musical careers, and now you have stopped that and you're doing Piedmont Bluz. Can you tell me how long Piedmont Bluz has been a band, and how it started and how you made that decision?
Yes, well, Valerie was a software engineer and I was a senior art director, graphic designer. And, you know, as time went by, we decided that, you know, we wanted to get out of corporate America and do something other than that. And you know, we spoke about it and
yeah, you
made
only
a
live
decision.
once, and we were kind of tired of the environment that we were working in for different reasons. And Ben said, "Well, let's just leave," and so we did. We didn't have a plan to play music for people. That was never part of the reason for leaving. That kind of emerged after the fact. Like once you make room for something else to happen, then it happens. And
Right.
And
When was that?
It was actually John Cephas who sort of made this happen in a way.
Yeah, before he passed away, he really encouraged a lot of his students to teach the things that he had taught them, to perform, just to help move everything on to another generation. And so I had promised him at some point that I would do that. So it was a kind of a natural progression.
So I guess everything is sort of on hold because of the pandemic. But do you when things are normal, and we have things like concerts, do you play a lot around here in the New York metropolitan area? Do you travel abroad a lot? Do you go where? Do you have a geographic focus, or you just go to festivals? How do you approach it?
Well, it's mostly on the East Coast. It's an East Coast tradition. So, and we've actually expanded out to the places in the Midwest, like Wisconsin, and where else have we been recently?
We've been to Michigan.
Yes.
We've been
Indiana.
We've been on the West Coast. We don't like target a specific area. We kind of check our email and see. Well, I should say that in the beginning, we used to reach out to venues and festivals and say, "Hey, would you consider having us?" And we didn't really get great responses. Sometimes they don't respond at all. And so we just stopped reaching out. And these days we just wait and see, well, who contacts us?
The funny thing is, as soon as we stopped reaching out, people started reaching
They started
in
finding us.
and finding us on whether it was Facebook or just emailing us. And it was interesting.
It's been very interesting.
Maybe I should stop trying to get advertising for the website. So maybe that'll work for me.
Yes. But we've also traveled internationally to Ireland, Spain. Where else?
We've been to Israel. We've been to Belgium, Austria.
Yes.
You've been all around this world, huh?
A few places.
Not quite. But
Yeah.
Sounds like you have a good start on doing that. So I have one more question for each of you, and I'll start with you, Valerie. Wikipedia says that you play a 1929 Art ISO parlor guitar with a hyphen between the art and the I and the I and the so. With a name like that, there ought to be a good story connected to the instrument. If there isn't, you should make one up.
Make one up.
Make one up.
I think it's called Artiso.
Okay, so I guess
I think, but it's a type of Stella guitar, and as you pointed out, it's from the 1920s. I purchased it from Neil Harp. He's in Maryland, and I don't think he does it anymore, but he used to seek out old Stella guitars and have them refurbished, and then he'd make them ready for sale. And that's how I picked that instrument up. And as unusual as it is, and as much as I love it, it's not my favorite guitar. It's my favorite instrument to play, and the one that I've been pretty much exclusively playing is made by Ron Phillips. He's in California, and it's a small resonator. I love that instrument because it's nice and loud. Whether I have great amplification from a venue or not, I can still be heard. And as far as I know, Ron Phillips is the only person that makes high quality resonators in the small size that I require.
Mm-hmm.
That's been my favorite instrument.
Okay, well, that's actually way above my head. I would ask a really clever follow-up, but it's over my head, so I'm gonna move on. But it sounds to me like musicians just have it's a whole world. The instruments are a whole world that us lay people don't know about. There's a great clip, I can send it to you. Are you familiar with Blind Boy Paxton?
Yes.
Yeah, we know him very well.
Yeah,
Are you in person?
Lives here. He also lives here in Queens.
Does he really? He has you've probably seen the video of him playing an old, beautiful, sad song written by a slave. And the song was written, I think, in 1856 or something. But he's playing on a banjo that was made the same year, and he's amazing. I'll send you the clip. I mean, it's heartbreaking, actually.
He is amazing. He's a very talented multi-instrumentalist,
right.
And he plays out of a variety of genres, and I think he's amazing.
Yeah, well, that much I know about. I know amazing when I see it, and he is amazing. So now, Ben, the workshops and what you play, what I see on the videos, washboard, bones, and spoons. My observation, first of all, has long been that it's interesting how household items were instruments. And I don't know if a bone is a household item, but kind of is. And so if you could comment on that, how things like the washboard, I love washboard Sam, as a matter of fact.
Yes, he's great.
Picking the potatoes is one of my favorite songs. If you could just react to that, I guess, of these household items becoming instruments in music, and the relevance of that to how music evolved. And the other part of the question is there actually a way to play these things as there is a way to play a guitar, or is it more just a feeling of rhythm and hitting whatever it is correctly? I don't know if that even makes sense.
Well, back in those days, people didn't have much money to purchase expensive instruments. So pots and pans, whatever they can find around the home, became percussion instruments, such as the bones, the washboard, even the wash tub was made into a bass instrument. Pots and pans, spoons, and from listening to different recordings, I did hear, a basic way that the washboard was played. Now, some of my washboard heroes, a man by the name of Newman Taylor Baker from the Ebony Hillbillies, and you know, they're different styles, and I created my own style from listening to other people. There's Washboard Chaz of Louisiana. I think you're familiar with him. And you know, so I just listened to them. I even took classes with them at the blues workshops earlier.
Mhm.
And you know, from that I created my own style,
Mhm.
and which sounds nothing like either of theirs, but
Mhm.
you know, they definitely had an influence on me.
Well,
And
it sounds beautiful. I don't know how percussionists manage to decompartmentalize their bodies and do different things with different parts. I guess guitarists do it too. But I can't even, you know, I'd probably be better trying to do nuclear physics or something. It just confounds me. But your instrumentation fits together beautifully. You know, and that's one of the things
thank you.
very, you know, that resonated with me. Anyway, I've truly enjoyed meeting both of you. This has been just terrific, and I really appreciate you guys taking time out. I really do. So this is Carl Weinshank from the Daily Music Break, reminding people that a way that you can support this site is if you are going to Amazon to purchase any Piedmont Blues music or anything else, if you go right from the website, click on one of the links and go to Amazon, the site gets supported with a slight amount of money from the purchase price. The purchase price remains the same to you. So that's my little advertisement, which I appreciate people sitting through. And again, this is Carl Weinshank for the Daily Music Break, thanking Piedmont Blues, Valerie and Ben Turner. And we'll be back soon with more great music. And remember to keep listening to great music. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you for
very
having
much.
us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome.